Dear beloved of God, I welcome you to this video in which we will continue to go through our study called The Cross of Christ. And we left at this slide. This was the last one of the previous video, so we will continue here. And I already have explained and shared that if we would nullify the snare of the cross, that can only be done by adding a condition, not only of circumcision, but of rites also, in order to obtain salvation. That is the problem. We can do nothing, we can contribute nothing in order to gain or obtain salvation. It's not possible because Christ has done it all. He has accomplished it. That is the point. So if we would continue thinking like that, not only would we nullify the snare of the cross, but it would take away our peace, security, our foundational diminution of our faith, and the loss of base when honoring God's name, and it will not be genuine. So please take that into account. And we continue. Let's look at the role of religion in relation to the cross. The great role of religion in relation to the cross is always to be found in the imposition of religious acts in order to be saved. This is very important, this addition, because religion always tries to add something in order for salvation to happen. So they want to know, or they want to impose acts done by the people in order for them to be quote unquote saved. While not only is it futile, it is detrimental. And it has consequences for our Ionian salvation. That's the point. Because you do not believe in the cross of Christ, in the completeness of it. And this is huge. In Galatia, it was circumcision. In churches nowadays, there are sacraments, or such as the sinner's prayer, and baptism. Those are all rites that churches, Christianity imposes on humans in order to get saved, so to speak. The imposition of such actions in order to be saved is detrimental to the completeness of the cross. This leads to complacency and a superior attitude towards those who don't participate. I think you will recognize that, because you have achieved something and your neighbor or your associate didn't. So you will feel superior compared to them. That's the whole problem. And you will see them as, oh, this is the one who doesn't belong. He doesn't belong. That's the problem. And that's the problem with Christianity also. That's what you see. We are to focus our attention on one thing and one thing only, and that is what Christ accomplished on the cross. That is the only valid focus. And today, religion is even more subtle. Let's read a more subtle attack on the snare of the cross. That is the suggestion that our salvation, wait for it, is based on our faith. Oh yes, I've seen it. I've seen it among Christians. Now they say, no, we cannot do anything. Christ has done it all for us. Yes, he has done it all. We can add nothing. The only thing is that we have to believe. That's it. But then they know, or they think, that belief comes out of us. They think that faith is something that is in us, and we have to somehow, magically take it out of ourselves and apply it. But we don't have faith. No human has faith. It's not possible. And Paul reminds us in Romans 3, starting with verse 10, that no one is righteous, no, not one. No one is seeking God. Everyone is deviated from God's way. So we don't have an inkling of faith in us. Faith is always an approach present by God. God is granting faith as a gift. That's the only truth about faith. We don't have faith. It's very important. So, not only what we do, but now also what we believe is considered essential to salvation. That's what they say. Especially the more refined Christians. Let me put it like that. However, the reality is exactly the other way around. What is the right order? The scriptural order within Paul's evangel. First, there is the fact of the perfect faith and the finished and accomplished work of Jesus Christ. That's the first thing. That is the engine, the driver. That's the fact already happened almost 2,000 years ago. Right? And the second one is God bestows faith in that fact. This fact, it's a gift from God. He bestows faith in that fact that happened in the past on us in His timing, placing His perfect righteousness upon us according to Romans 3:22. And only then, that's the third one, come the works which also God has prepared in advance for us to walk in, pursuant to Ephesians 2 verse 10. God has prepared our works also. Not only our faith, no, also our works are not from us. Our works are from God. Prepared for us to walk in them. So let it be very, very clear. This is the right order. There's only one engine, and that's that fact that happened. That what Jesus Christ accomplished for us. That's the fact, and that's the engine. That's the driver. And the rest, point 2 and 3, are the caboose, are the cart behind the horse. We are God's called ones, the believers nowadays according to Paul's evangel. The calling of God is according to His purpose, obviously. You can read that in Romans 8, verse 28 to 30. Relatively speaking, God's calling is based on the gift of His Son for all of us, of course. Relatively, because it is part of His plan. That's how He has planned it from the beginning. So, God's calling is based on the gift of His Son for us. And the result of that is justification first, and above that, or a deeper truth, is conciliation. So mind you, our act of faith is also a gracious gift from God to us. You can read that in Romans 12 verse 3 very clearly, Ephesians 2 verse 8, and Philippians 1 verse 29. Very well-known passages. So there is no room whatsoever for boasting here either. Our faith is not from us. It's not of us at all. One sometimes receives more faith from God than the other, but none of this affects what Christ has done for us. God is determining who gets a certain measure of faith. Also in terms of time. Your faith can increase. Your faith can also decrease. Again, all planned by God, all directed by God. So, it's about love because of the snare. What do we mean? When we understand and appreciate the snare of the cross, so we don't avoid it, but we embrace it, we are gradually freed from jealousy and envy, two fruits of religion, jealousy and envy. Religion requires us to do and believe right, so that we are constantly busy with ourselves, looking at ourselves. Do I do it the right way? Did I ask for forgiveness last night? Etc., etc. Did I sin today? These are the things that religion is busy with. They are only looking at themselves and not at Christ because they don't trust the cross. That's the whole point. They do not trust the completeness of the cross of Christ. By understanding the cross, we look at what Christ has done, and that gives freedom to also see others in love. First of all, we see us in love because now we know that we are truly freed. But then that gives the opportunity and the freedom to see others in love, others for whom Christ also died. Let's read Galatians 5 verse 13. For you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use liberty as an inducement to the flesh, but enslave one another in love. What does it mean? It would be most stupid of us if we would misuse our liberty. Why? Why? Because if you look at how law works, prohibitions, how they work, is they are producing sin. They are producing transgressions on those prohibitions, right? We know that already. When something is forbidden, it becomes extra attractive. We went through that already. So if that's the case with law, what does it do with grace? What is the consequence, the effect of grace? The other way around. So if you really understand grace and the freedom that lies in grace, what will happen? You will become grateful. And the gratefulness will lead to joy inside. And that will decrease our drive and motivation to sin at all. So if you would misuse the liberty to sin, you can do that, of course, because where is sin, there is even more grace. We know that from Romans 5:20. However, it would be detrimental to your life, to your daily life. You wouldn't become happy. No way. Because not all is expedient. Remember, all is allowed me, Paul says, but not all is expedient. It will not help. At the contrary, it will be detrimental for your daily life. So take that also with you. So only the absolute truth that Christ paid the price for everyone, including our companion, our associate, can set us truly free to love him. Love our companion, that is. If we think we have to earn God's acceptance ourselves, it will lead to biting, to devouring, strife, jealousy, anger, factions. Oh, I I said strife the second time. Sects and envy. So we can read that in Galatians 5 verse 15 and 20, and I think 19 too. It starts with 19, I think. Anyway, the fruit of the Spirit is and that's singular. That's of course the other way around, found in Galatians 5 verse 22 and verse 23. That is the result. So the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, is the result of the message of the cross, of understanding the impact of the message of the cross, understanding the impact and effect of the cross of Christ, including the pitfall of not allowing human efforts to gain justification. And then you have really understood it. Okay, we continue. The cross is the place, as we know, of shame and disgrace, where the flesh was also cast aside. Therefore, there is now much room for thanksgiving and much opportunity to look around us with love and understanding for others for whom Christ died. Now we are in that situation of freedom in order to look at others and love others for whom Christ died. And so in this fertile soil of the complete cross grows and ripens the precious fruit, singular, of the Spirit, namely love. There is, however, a danger of the Word of God being misunderstood, especially when it comes to the cross. It may be thought that it is not important what we do or believe at all. So let's look at that quickly. However, the snare of the cross will set us free to do the right things and grow in faith, to be grounded in love and in truth. So again, our faith and our actions are the result of the cross. Again, I mentioned the right order here. First, it starts with the cross and its snare. That's the fact that happened almost 2,000 years ago. That is the engine, the driver, and that entails grace. That is what grace is all about. It's totally free. You cannot do anything to earn that. Grace cannot be earned. And then, because of that fact, we receive faith to believe in that fact, in the completeness of the cross, which is the first wagon or the first cart, if you want. And based on that, we will do actions that are already prepared by God. That's the effect of our faith. The faith that we also have received from God. That is the second wagon or cart, if you want. So each of these three is a gift of grace from God to us out of His love. Let's go to one more slide. So it starts at the finish line. What do I mean? The cross is the finish line. So we are already placed at the cross. We are placed at the finish line. We don't need to run a race towards that finish line. Let there be no misunderstanding. This finish line is the spot where our life of faith begins, where our realization of the truth of God's grace begins. So there is also something after the finish line, but that is our faith, our life of faith, and based on that, our works of faith. But again, these things, especially our works, not our faith, but our works, are not necessary for us to be saved. Not necessary. I'm talking about saved in terms of Aeonian life. It's not necessary. However, if we comprehend grace, because of the fact that we will be grateful and joyous because of that, of course we will want to do good works for others for whom Christ also died. That's the point. So the finish line, that's our starting point. We have been placed there. We have not accomplished that ourselves, that finish line. No way. That is what Christ did for us. That's why we are placed at the finish line. Hope you understand. So we already find ourselves there under the seal of God's promise, secured by Christ's blood. That is what Paul means when he talks about freedom in Galatians 5. God has chosen us and called us and put us in this position of salvation. I think something went wrong with the translation here. But in this position of salvation in our daily lives already. So now we can walk in certainty. So only if we believe the evangel that our redemption is a finished work, an accomplished work, and if we accept that finished work as our starting point, as I mentioned, then we will walk in love, joy, and true peace. Okay, so I will end with this slide. I thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.